Masada, in the desert of Judea, standing on a plateau, looking down over the lands as an impenetrable fortress, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was once the grounds where Titus and his rebels used their engineering skills as well as fear tactics to pulverize the Jewish rebels, forcing them into giving up on life. The fortress of Masada is 840 acres. This complex is elevated 1,300 feet above a sea of sand and wasteland. The island of Might was surrounded by the dry, uninhabitable desert that was undeveloped and barren. Herod, the great king of the Jewish people, built this defensive staple from 37 to 4 BC. Eventually, the Romans took over Judea in the 1st century AD. These fortress grounds were inhabited by a garrison force of Romans, but when the Jewish revolt occurred, a group called the Sicarii took over the fortress and later ripped the defensive and self-sufficient grounds to their advantage. Now, since you know a little about the Masada fortress, let's take a look at why the Romans laid siege on this impregnable fortress. When the 16th king of the northern Israelite kingdom of Israel, Menahem, was killed in Jerusalem in 66 AD, the chief of the Sicarii fled to the fortress of Masada to command the Judean rebels to hold the fortress from the military might of Rome. As Jerusalem was taken by the Romans, the pagan Roman army saw the mighty fortress of Masada as their next target. The stronghold of Masada was perfect for defending a siege. It was elevated on a plateau and had a narrow, windy, snake-like passage that can still be visible and even utilized to this day. As a result of this passageway, the Romans would be able to only attack the fortress in a single file line. As previously mentioned, the fortress of Masada is 840 acres. The complex is elevated 1,300 feet high, the outer wall is 1.4 meters thick, and the inner wall is 1 meter. 30 towers supported the 1,400-meter wall, and the garrison of Masada was less than 1,000 people. Also, this number is overestimated as many of the garrisons were refugees, women, and children. The fortress could, however, bear a great siege since it was self-sufficient in water and food supply. Herod's engineers built 2 dams near the peak of the Judean mountain. Aqueducts then captured the water flowing through wadis, dry valley ravines, and channeled it into cisterns. These large reservoirs pockmarked the western ridge of Masada. Collectively, they had a capacity of over 10 million gallons. The great fortress also had a food supply that could last the zealots 15 storehouses of food, enough for 10,000 people for 10 years. When you think of a siege, you think of 2 ways to win: either a frontal military assault or starving out the defending garrison. Masada was prepared for both. With Titus Flavius Vespasianus being sent back to Rome to be the next emperor, his son Titus was in charge of finishing Judea. He had at his disposal the 5th Legion, the 16th Legion, the 10th Legion, and the remainder of the 3rd Gallic Legion to take Jerusalem, which was later under the command of Lucius Flavius Silva. Under Lucius Flavius Silva's command, he bared the famous 10th Legion of Fretensis, famous from Julius Caesar's descendant of his 10th Legion. This legion bore experience as well as blood, seeing as they were recently deployed in campaigns in Armenia and in the siege of Jerusalem. The 10th Legion was followed by 6 auxiliary cohorts and thousands of Jewish prisoners of war. The Romans arrived with a force of 10,000 men. Outnumbered 10 to 1 under the command of Eleazar ben Yair, the surrounding dune wasteland and the rough terrain, as well as the state-of-the-art fortifications, proved that this siege was no walkover. The first thing the Romans did was cut the supply of water from the zealots, turning their aqueducts for their own use. Following this, the Roman anaconda swallowed Masada whole, circulating the stronghold with a wall fortification to ensure no one will be leaving or entering Masada. The Romans constructed around Masada a 3-meter stone wall which traveled 3.2 kilometers and was followed by 8 Roman camps as well as copious amounts of guard posts. This amazing construction was a testament to the grand Roman military skill in architecture and engineering as it was finished in a matter of days. These fortifications can still be seen even to this day. The Romans finally encircling the fortress knew they would have to eventually breach the fortress, as Masada would last longer in a siege with supplies as compared to the Romans. The Romans assaulting Masada would have to battle nature itself. The Romans decided to build a man-made ramp from the very earth beneath them that allowed them to have better access to breaching the stronghold. The amazing engineers of Rome built this man-made ramp with a 20-degree incline starting 200 meters out from the cliff. Day by day, the Romans crept up the stronghold as the ramp was slowly heightening upon the zealot defenses. Imagine waking up every morning knowing you'll meet the might of the Romans in battle, first being cut off from water, then, in a matter of days, being surrounded by walls, and finally, seeing a mountain slowly, day by day, inching up to your fortifications. Within 2 months, the ramp was complete. The ramp was 222 meters wide and 110 meters high. Eventually, a constructed siege tower was able to move up the slope upon the defenses. It was mounted with a ram and small artillery parts. Eventually, fighting the Zealots on the first day, the first wall was breached. On the second day, the 10th Legion stormed the grand fortress of MASADA, only to be greeted by no more than dead Zealots and Jews. In conclusion, the Romans were successful, and the army in Judea, led by Titus and Lucius Flavius Silva at the siege of MASADA, was victorious. Their victory echoed throughout the streets of Rome, their names forever glorious from the victory in Judea and the siege of MASADA. Eventually, like his father, Titus became the Emperor of Rome. To this day, many believe the siege of MASADA is one of the greatest sieges of the ancient world. As for the Jews who took their lives in the MASADA fortress, it has only been recorded by one historian, Josephus, who wrote that the Sicarii killed each other to avoid enslavement. However, some historians and archaeologists dispute his account. Keep in mind, Josephus was a former commander of Galilee. After being captured by the Romans at the siege of Jodfat, he became a negotiator and attempted to negotiate with the Judeans while acting on Titus's behalf, so it can be easy to dismiss his account as biased. However, there is no debate that the siege of MASADA to this day is known as a remarkable siege, a testament to the might of Rome with their strategy and engineering, as well as the bravery of the Zealots and Jews who endured so much from the Roman Empire and its great reign.